welcome back to another episode of the Modern Cyber Podcast. If you are joining us for the second or third time, please do us a favor, hit that subscribe button, follow us, like, share, all that good stuff. And, if you do get the chance to rate and review, it helps very much. We are thrilled to have somebody on that I have spoken to a number of times, and somebody who's been in the cyber industry, honestly, I think about twice as long as I have, and probably has about twice as much depth of knowledge as I do as well. We're thrilled to welcome Evgeniy Kharam to join us today. Evgeniy is built and wired differently. As a father of four, including twins, he has mastered the art of remaining unflappable in the face of adversity, arguably a very, very strong skill in cybersecurity as well. But Evgeniy's career began on the technical front lines as a firewall deployment engineer and has evolved remarkably to a VP role, VP of Architecture at the Herjavec Group, a name that I know many of us are familiar with. Evgeniy's journey has provided him with a panoramic view of cybersecurity, showcasing his ability to navigate and lead across all of its domains. Beyond his corporate achievements, Evgeniy's passion for the field exists to founding two podcasts himself, the Technical Security Architecture and the other business-focused cyber inspiration podcast that I've had the pleasure of being on myself. And Evgeniy moderates panels and does interviews for the entire industry. He uniquely blends his personal passions with his professional life by co-founding a cybersecurity-focused ski and snowboard conference, which sounds amazing, and creatively merging lifestyle with industry engagement. Evgeniy now runs his own cyber and media consulting services, leveraging his extensive industry knowledge and media expertise to guide clients through the complexities of cybersecurity. That is quite a journey, Evgeniy. I don't know where you find the time, but thanks so much for joining us today.
Did you come up with everything yourself, Jeremy, right now? This was quite amazing. I could use it later on.
Hey, look, I put in some ad libs to the copy that they gave me, but I know you and I've talked to you a number of times, and it really is a pleasure to have you on here today. I really am curious, though. That is quite a journey. You've gone through technical roles, you've gone through media roles, marketing roles. How's the journey been for you?
Well, so if you ever work with Robert Herjavec on a Herjavec Group, it's quite a ride. It's a very, very fast ride, very, very fast company. Not for everyone, but for me, it was definitely interesting to be part of so many different things. Like I started the journey as a deployment engineer. But by being and working with so many vendors, I had the opportunity to work with more than 400, 500 different vendors, maybe even more. So I heard the speeches from different people, the pitches from different people to actually pitch with vendors to the customers as well. So definitely humble for the journey. I like the journey. I was able to kind of get a lot from everything, from project management, from deployment, from pre-sales, from post-sales, from architecture. I'm definitely happy where I am. People told me that I probably stayed too long in one vendor, 16 years in one company. But it is what it happened. I, as I call it, graduated last year and now running my own consulting company. That's been quite a ride as well so far. So very grateful where I am, very grateful to the people I meet, like you. Again, we met through the podcast, we met through the LinkedIn, and I'm very, very surprised the quality of people you can meet, and also how great are the people. Because if you ask me like 5-6 years ago, you're going to be on the call with the CEO, with the CTO, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm going to have CEO on the call. They're probably some kind of a magical special people that we cannot talk to them, but they're awesome people. They're like you and me. You're a founder, so you are magical, but they're great people that they took an idea and move it a bit farther from the idea to actually execute it.
Yeah, it's interesting. This point about the people you meet is something that, I'll be honest, there was a couple of years ago, I actually thought about getting out of cybersecurity, and a whole range of things happened. I had a little bit of career burnout. I had overworked for a couple of years in 2018 and 2019, and I really did feel like I needed like a bigger career break. COVID lockdown kind of changed my opinion, and there was a number of things that happened around the same time that made me stay in cybersecurity. And one of the most interesting things that I've observed kind of coming out of COVID and then getting back into meeting people in person at, RSA, Black Hat, industry events, et cetera, is I think this is the industry where I've seen people have the most human personal connections. And, one of the little kind of measurements that I use is how many hugs do you get from people working at other companies not not partner organizations, not customers, not your investors, but just people that who've been in the industry. And the
Isn't
default
this just
greeting
part
is,
of culture? Depend from where you're coming, you're hugging or not hugging per
I,
personality?
I don't know. I mean, look, my family's Finnish. We don't hug in Finland. But I find that in the cybersecurity industry, I get more hugs than any other technology space that I've ever worked in.
It's just because of the entire idea as a service. So now it's a hugging as a service, that's it.
Could be. Could be. I like to think that there's something of like a shared stress level in there.
Yes.
Like most of the people that you work with, you're going through difficult things, right? And cybersecurity is one of these things where it's like a day that nothing happens is a good day, and then you have bad days. But those good days, you don't get a lot of positive reinforcement a lot of the time, right? It's just kind of a normal day.
But this is interesting what you're saying, because I have a feeling many people painting cyber in just like one paint. Here's blue,
Okay.
here's black, here's green, whatever the paint it is. But in reality, I really don't think so. So I am an architect by trade.
Okay.
I am not a pen tester. I'm not a blue team person. I'm not a red team person. Okay?
Right.
I know how it's working. Don't get me wrong. But this is not what I do. This is not where I shine. So, and we have this idea that like, oh my God, it's always about defending. It's like, no, I'm not defending anyone. I'm creating an architecture. I'm creating a design that will defend what you need to do. But this is not what I'm doing. And we always like, I want to be a pen tester. It's like, why? Because it sounds cool. Because you can be a consulting person, you can be a GRC person. There are so many different flavors of what we can do in cyber that somehow it's not everything about the vulnerability. It's not everything about, oh my God, there's a critical flow with 0 day here. It's different. And also, I think it's very applicable to what you guys do in your company as well, is we have a corporate security and we have like an application or the end user product security. It's a bit different stack. It's a bit different.
Absolutely.
Controls. It's a bit different procedures, compliance is what we need to do. It's very, very interesting, but we're not always carving this way in cybersecurity.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think you've probably gotten a unique view because of the range of positions that you've gone through. And then also working at a company like Herjavec, where you're not focused on just one organization. You must have worked with, I imagine, hundreds of organizations over the years, if not thousands. I guess like one of the things I'm curious is, are there any kind of summary or high level, let's say like trends or general lessons that you've taken away from that?
Everybody is very distributed. It takes a lot of people to actually synchronize effort and make sure the company is going in one direction. Remember the talks probably 8-10 years ago that the network team don't talk to a cloud team. Sorry. Network team don't talk to the endpoint team. Now, surprisingly, all the network companies are also endpoint companies because they also have endpoint security. Now we say, oh, they don't talk to the cloud. They don't talk to the GRC. So one trend I kind of see all the time is, unfortunately, people don't understand is a mutual battle, if you can say this. It's a mutual effort. We need a village to raise a child. We need a mutual understanding where we're taking this company and what we're doing.
Yeah.
This is one part. Second part, people prefer to do sexy stuff, shiny stuff, than the stuff that need to be done.
Yeah.
So asset management, vulnerability management, understanding do you have everything to actually protect it. It's kind of boring, but it's need to be done. Understand that actually your firewall rules are commented. You're following the same naming convention. You actually telling people when you're doing changes and not just doing things anytime you want because you know everything. But they're like, oh, let me put some automation on top of it and everything's going to be okay right now without playbooks. So this is also like a trend I see. But the positive trend is a lot of people care. This is the positive trend. A lot of people, they actually care about their job. They care about what they're doing. They care about the security and the protection the companies they're working for. That I think it's phenomenal. I think it's not just 9 to 5. Like, oh, 5:01, there's an attack happening, alert happening. No, I'm done. No. So this is the positive part I see.
Yeah, interesting. I'm really curious. Like, Managed security is something that I think it's gone through a number of different kind of names or brands over the years, right? There was managed SOC, MSSP, MDR seems to be the brand or the kind of the acronym that's got the most buzz and momentum behind it right now. As somebody who spent 16 years working in managed security of various flavors, what do you think people don't understand about managed security?
So I think, first of all, some of the acronyms a lot of time are gimmicks.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be looking on the acronym. You should look on what you get under the cover.
Right.
Okay, so XDR, MDR, MSSP, NDR, there's many, many, many names. It doesn't matter the name. Understand what you're actually getting. And this is, I think, very, very important, because everybody, again, can paint it in different colors you want. You need to understand what you get on top of this. If you're getting a product, a service, a combination, who is doing what. What people don't understand is, if you are a company that's making ice creams and you have a very high-end company manufacturing these robots, okay, whatever it is,
Okay.
are you an IT company or you're an ice cream company? I hope you're an ice cream company.
Yeah.
And people get stuck that, oh, but I have all these devices to manage. I have all the security controls to manage. So people get stuck in the idea that your main business is making ice cream or creating insurance or whatever you're doing. I still remember a long time ago, we're doing a workshop for a company that's making chickens. And of course, I'm like thinking about all the automation and the asking, what's your biggest risk? And our mind is set on the cybersecurity incidents. Like, it's basically the chickens you're going to be sick.
Yeah.
Okay,
Bird flu is a much bigger risk to that company
like,
than
this just makes sense.
ransomware.
Okay. Like, okay, we didn't think about it. It's like our mind was so locked. Yeah. And where I'm taking this is, companies need to understand that they need to focus on their main business and outsource the parts that are not the main business. Now, not outsource everything. It's not, don't go cold turkey, because you still need to have someone that's going to make the decisions. But this is the beauty of having SaaS applications. You are outsourcing part of this thing. You don't need to manage the database. You don't need to manage the server, reboot the Windows box every time. Not your problem anymore, somebody else's problem anymore. So there's a bit of a risk there, but you understand that you don't need to wake up during the night and go to reboot a server because your production database doesn't work and you cannot do whatever needs to be done. Same with MSSPs. MSSPs are not just a checkbox. MSSPs, the good one, of course, they have many different flavors of them, are the ones that should take over your pain, take over the stuff you need to do, and let you focus on your main business. So this is, I guess, going to be my main part, and we can definitely happy to go to nuances, what makes sense, what don't make sense. I do want to add another part.
Please.
Every vendor I met, they're like, oh, I want to sell to MSSP. Like, this is great. But they don't understand that the MSSP may don't know how to sell them, or may don't understand how to create a practice around them, actually part of everything, or how to price them.
Mm-hmm.
So you will not go to MSSP and say, oh, hello, I have this amazing API security thingy, with AI, sell me. MSSP will never tell them, I have no idea how to sell you. I have no idea how to price you. They'll say, oh, yeah, this is great. No. And that's it. So this is a vendor responsibility to actually teach this part. The customer responsibility to actually go to these nuances and understand, what do we get? Or if they don't know, hire an expert that helps them to understand, hey, we get this, we want to outsource some of the stuff, but we're not really sure what do we need to ask. What's important?
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to run all my firewalls. Great. Is it going to actually update the firewalls? Upgrade the firewalls? Like, what's the difference between update and an upgrade? Oh, update could be, I'm version 7, I'm going to 7.01. Oh, that's an update, okay. So no reboot, no nothing, or maybe a small reboot, like a fast one. Okay, what's an upgrade? Oh, I need to go from 7 to 8. What does it mean? Oh, it means that there is much more risk involved because there's more features involved. And if I have 100 firewalls, if I need to spend a firewall a day for a firewall, then it's 100 days. And if I charge somebody $2,000 per day, whatever it is companies may charge you these days, it's become quite expensive part that you didn't put inside your contract.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting perspective. I think that that point about, vendors partnering with MSSPs is one that, I work in the startup community. I talk to a lot of startups and a lot of startup founders, and I hear that a lot. It's like, oh, we're going to launch and we're going to go to market through MSSPs, and we're just going to like build our technology and our pricing model, and we're going to put it in front of a bunch of MSSPs, and they're going to magically sell it. And I
No,
tend to think that there's a big challenge in that, not only around what you said around the pricing model, but I even think the understanding is one of the big challenges, because like fundamentally, where do cybersecurity startups work? They work in emerging technologies, right? We work in the API security space. There's not a ton of solutions. There are some, but there's not a long history of companies going out, customers going out and looking for API security solutions. So there's not a common understanding of, okay, when a customer goes looking for API security, they're going to ask for the following things. The feature set should look like this, the pricing tier should look like that, so that an average seller at an MSSP should be able to stand in front of a customer and present this offering coherently and in a way that it makes sense to the customer. And I think a lot of the times, especially for emerging technologies, that's just not the case, right?
it's not the case. You're absolutely right. Well, it takes time to explain. Also, don't forget, we have what, 4,000 vendors right now in the industry? Give or
Yeah.
take? Give or take 500 here and there,
Yeah. Yeah.
Depend on the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Depend if Cisco acquired somebody or not today.
Yep.
It's and not picking on Cisco, just like because
Yeah.
they have a lot of vendors.
I would have said Palo Alto Networks, but the same point, right? Who acquires the most companies
Yeah,
in the cybersecurity
yes.
industry? It's those two are two of the top candidates.
Fair. So for the MSSP, like think about them. If you want to sell as a vendor to MSSP, and there's 4,000 vendors, and there's 365 days a year, so what does it mean? That in theory, 10 vendors a day may reach into
Yeah,
MSSP
exactly.
and say, "Hi, my sliced bread is the best sliced bread ever. Sell me." Okay, so they're not getting so many. Let's have
Yeah.
2. Let's have 1. It's still a lot of vendors. Like they're not
Yeah.
going to sell all the vendors. Not going to be able to sell all the vendors. The good MSSPs will probably have 10, 20, 30 vendors. So maybe we're going to have 40 when they have like overlap a main vendor and a secondary vendor. It
Yeah.
still takes a lot of time to do this. Now, depending on
Yeah.
the consulting, and it's not a consulting podcast right now, but the vendors really need to understand what the MSSP going to ask them, what do they care about, how they're going to help them, how are they going to support them, because the days when you tell MSSP are going to give you X amount of money and sell my technology are completely over. No, nobody
Yeah.
is doing this.
Well, I'm curious about those early days, right? Because I was thinking about this the other day and talking to somebody who works in the managed security space and is recently in the managed security space as of like 3 or 4 years ago, not with the 15 plus year background that you have. And I was kind of curious about the early days of managed cybersecurity, because on the one hand, I think it could have been super easy, that a lot of companies would have been like, oh yeah, please take this problem off my hands. We have no cybersecurity expertise in house. We just know that we have risks and we know that we're not equipped to deal with them. Or it could have been super difficult, where customers were like, I'm going to trust an outside firm with the cybersecurity of my entire organization. I'm
Oh, this
curious, like,
is,
what
oh my
what were
God.
those customer
You're bringing,
conversations like?
yeah, you're bringing so much memories. So it is a lot of smoke and mirrors in a way. It was very easy in one hand and very difficult on the other hand. I'll explain.
Please.
So first of all, if we go 15 years ago, what did we have?
Yeah.
Firewall, email
Yeah.
security, web proxy, some kind of antivirus, McAfee semantic trend.
Yep.
I don't know, network
DLP maybe.
acceleration. Yeah, like we had like 10 domains. Let's put them
Yeah.
domains. Or
Yeah. Yep.
now, like I have a list. I have my own like a mini vendor database that I maintain for myself
Yep.
for my work. So I have 120 categories overall of
Oh,
different
geez.
type of vendors. There's like 15, 16 main categories, but just the endpoint security itself has like 8 different subcategories. Network security, like 15 different subcategories. Application security, risk compliance. There's many, many different things. So from this perspective, back in the days, what you used to manage was quite simple. It was a SIM and a firewall.
Yep.
That's it. Pretty much.
Okay.
Even the endpoint security management came probably much, much later.
There wasn't really centralized management of endpoint security at that time.
There was.
Okay.
McAfee and Symantec had it. It was pain in the butt. The first EPPs, like you need to have your own security SQL, you need to have your Windows server. Each database file, that file was like 400 megabytes. So you need servers to actually take them and then redistribute them inside your company. And then from time to time, the companies will make a mistake, screwed up on a dot, and you have to repeat this. So your infrastructure for endpoint management will be like 40 servers across a big company. Right now, you just tiny, like 50, 20 meg file on your endpoint, and you go to a cloud with SentinelOne, CrowdStrike, and let's call them the next generation EDRs and TPDR right now. So, and also like the migration was hard as well. So you manage SIM, you manage firewalls, you manage IPSs. So the last to manage. But there was no cloud, there was no SaaS. It's mean you need to connect to customer premises. So it's an interesting blog and potentially an interesting discussion we can do. But right now, you probably will not talk to an MSSP that tell you, oh, I have a direct VPN to my customer.
Okay.
But back in the days, this is what you did. You had a direct VPN to a customer that you can connect, probably from your own network, that you can connect to the firewalls, to the managed server, to the managed appliances. The second part, and it still actually exists for many, many different MSSPs, is a centralized model for the SIM. I'll take a SIM. ArcSight was a big one in this case, for example.
Yeah.
And I will chunk the SIM for many, many different slices. And I will not sell you a SIM. I'll sell you a service. And I'll have an AppSec tunnel to you where I take all the logs, these collectors, to my ArcSight internally, or whatever the SIM you use, QRadar. There was a lot of different, the RSA as well. Like we can talk, there's a different topic. So my architecture was different. And it definitely created many problems, because if I have a tunnel from my network to your network, what if I get infected? What if you get infected? Do I really did a good segmentation, good rules on my VPN and my firewalls to change it? I remember we actually changed, me and Sean Higgins and Herjavec group, we changed how we connected. We had a different network with different tunnels, with everything related to Active Directory. So if you need to let Evgeniy go tomorrow, there is no way Evgeniy can connect to customers and mess up stuff. And then, okay, later on, do I really need to have any tunnels? Can I have a jump service? So can I use a different methodology, different architecture to connect to collect telemetry? Still work. Because there was a lot of architecture and changes from a separation from the customer and also keeping the safety from the customer, not moving all the logs across, keep the telemetry. And also, I'm a very big believer that the data belongs to a customer. So if I now take data from the customer to my SIM, I can keep your data hostage. And it happened. It happened so many times. The customer is not going to be happy with their managed service provider. And they're like, okay, we're going to leave you. I'm like, okay, leave me. I need my logs. No, because they're in my SIM.
Yeah.
So we're coming back to, I'm a customer, I want to outsource. Is this going to be fine print? Where does the data reside? How many months of hot cold storage and who is belong to when I want to leave? This is not what people think about it when they unfortunately outsource stuff.
That's really interesting. Over the time as that evolved, I mean, I hear a couple of things from what you said. I mean, one of the things that actually jumps out to me as a former practitioner is you guys were probably one of the best, had one of the strongest security architectures of any company around at the time, because of having all of these considerations around, let's say, your third party risk to the customer, or from the customer perspective, how they view that, and then also your own controls to make sure that no, let's say, insider threat could really like damage a customer, and how you were handling the data and so on. I think a lot of the things that you said around, let's say, microsegmentation is still something we don't see a lot of, right? I mean, we see ransomware.
We're back to acronyms. We're back to I have a fancy acronym. Okay, so what do you actually did about this,
Yeah. And it's funny. one of the other things that occurs to me is like over that time period, as what drove the adoption of new technologies? I mean, I assume a lot of the demand came from the customer saying like, hey, we're all of a sudden going to start using SaaS solutions. We're going to start using hosted email. We're going to start using AWS, et cetera. And I assume that the managed security providers responded to that, or was it more like managed security providers were seeing the new technologies and then like helping the customers see that they could gain efficiency by using them, or some of both?
I think it's a combination. I think a combination of three. One, compliance.
Okay.
You cannot
Yeah.
remove compliance from the equation. Compliance is probably the biggest driver in my mind in cybersecurity selling right now, because the customer needs this. The customer knows
Yep.
he needs this. So we can slice a different way. If the customer needs to be PCI compliant or some kind of financial compliant, then okay, there's a clear case of why they need to buy it. Now they realize what they need to buy. And how? Because, okay, I can buy what exists, or maybe you have a very, I think it's an architecture work or engineering work at a customer. Like, okay, I need to fix a problem to be compliant. Do I need to fix the problem in one way or another way? Or maybe I can not just be compliant, but also improve my cybersecurity. This is where the innovation going to come. So people like trying to understand, oh, I can do that, but I can also do segmentation, for example. I can also have a better resulting and understanding what's happening with my users. So let's say I need to track data, what my people doing in a company. Okay, great. Doesn't say I need to do behavior, but I have the data. So what if I get a product? So let's go to SIEMs. We have this Time, Secure Onyx, Exabeam, Guru Call, and many of these companies started to do UBA.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so I can do the same, but I can also analyze not just Evgeniy and have logs in case HR asks me to understand what Evgeniy is doing. I can maybe predict stuff. Oh, Evgeniy usually work 9 to 5, great. And don't get me wrong, it's not like it's always worked. You need to have a lot of things happen at work. But now Evgeniy working night shifts, like something happened. Oh, Evgeniy never download so much data over the FTP or from a OneDrive. Is Evgeniy actually leaving? Evgeniy is trying to leave or preparing to leave. So there's a lot of data we can do. So we have compliance, we have innovation that people come, okay, I can fix the same problem a different way. And it's definitely MSSPs and VARs say, hey, this amazing vendor just came out to us and they're solving this problem. And people are like, I don't have this problem. Oh, but our people want to have a new gaming solution. And guess what? It's going to do APIs. So now we're going to have this problem.
Yeah. Interesting. And I'm curious about a couple of other things. I mean, you've learned a lot along this way. What led you to kind of do what you're doing now? Because it's a lot of things, right? So you're doing media stuff, you're doing consulting work. I take it you have a book coming out. You do this snow and skiboarding conference. I mean, first of all, talk to us about the book and about the snow and skiboarding conference.
Okay, so it's actually one lead to another.
Okay.
I am a very big believer of soft skills, and I think you and me spoke about this several times.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that we always, not think, I truly believe in this, that we are happy to talk to people that are single-minded or similar to us, or basically people that kind of sharing same expertise. So if I'm going snowboarding with you, we're going to talk about snowboarding. So there's a long story about how we came out with the Ski Snowboard Conference, but basically I was doing a training for snowboarding. I see how easy it is to connect to other people, came back, put a LinkedIn post. What if we do an event like that? Later on, my partner, Tony, saw my picture. We spoke about that. He had access to a resort, and we did it 2 years in a row right now. And we're doing a summer event in August 15 for bikes and hikes right now. So people ask for a summer event as well. But the theory was, if I'm going to a conference, I usually coming back and saying, oh my God, I met this person when I was waiting in line for the talk. I talked to this person in the hall. So past COVID, when we have everything available online, do I really need to go to a conference to learn something new? Or as you mentioned about hugging, I want to go and interact with people.
Yeah.
So what if we bring people to a place where they don't need to think how to start a conversation with anyone in the room, where they don't need
Interesting.
to be shy, when they don't need
Yeah.
to ask, I'm Evgeniy, kind of in cyber, can I sell you something? Can I understand what you're
Yeah. Yeah.
doing?
Yeah.
Maybe you have a fancy suit. Because I can always come and Jeremy say, hey, I see you riding Burton. Like, what is your favorite? Why are you riding this board? What is your favorite mountain? And like, oh yeah. And you start talking to them. Because why? Because you already sharing something in common. And
Yeah.
if you have this conversation about skiing, about riding, about your favorite mountain, you're going up a lift. Tony, my partner, always like to joke that it's a perfect elevator pitch in Ontario because the lifts are so short. You only have 2 minutes to pitch to someone. So the moving from talking about skiing and skiing to cyber is very native, is very
Okay.
common. If I
Yeah.
didn't like the conversation with you about skiing and snowboarding and the mountain, I'm probably not gonna talk to you about cyber as well.
Yeah.
And if you add food and a bit of alcohol on top of it,
Yeah.
just leave people alone and let them mingle. This is basically what we did, and it
Did
proven
did
it. Hmm?
did the skiers and snowboarders get along? Because I know that sometimes, that's a little bit
Yeah.
oil and water where they don't mix.
No, we just joke around, Like I'm riding, by the way. Though. No, we all friends. We all like the mountain. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
Awesome.
Um,
Awesome.
so it proved the theory about the connection part, and the book is
Yeah.
basically about soft skills. My thesis is that right now, when we not lost the ability, but we limit the amount of physical meetings, and
Yeah.
we're mainly doing majority of the meetings online for sales, that we only have limited minutes to connect to each other because people
Yeah.
lose interest. And not because they're bad people. It's because they have 3, 4 screens around them.
Yeah.
They're very distracted. Slack is going here, Signal, Teams, LinkedIn. But if we're able to connect on a personal level, then the chances that we're building rapport is going up, and then we have more opportunity to sell. So book talks about how create the hooks, how understand the hooks, how to understand the physiological, like the philosophical part of the other person, because people learn
Yeah.
differently as well. I also touch base on voice,
Yeah.
because if we speak the entire day, we need to make sure our voice is actually good. The same way we're going to chiropractor or somebody else, I suggest we can go to voice coach and understand how they can improve their voice. I
Oh,
speak
interesting.
about fear, like what if
Yeah.
you're actually afraid to talk for so
Yeah.
many hours, or afraid to ask questions like, oh, Jeremy, hi, how are you doing? So we presented to you already 3, 4 times. Here's a budget for this, or we're just here to educate. It's a simple question. Like, I'm not trying to offend Jeremy. And Jeremy may say, no, there's no budget. But
Yeah. Yeah.
so there's a lot of stuff involved there, and actually, a chapter that is the latest chapter that came to the book right now is still in progress. Is basically how to overcome burnout. Like if I'm
Yeah.
doing 10, 12 meetings a day, what happened if I have a meeting number 5 is bad? I have 5
Yeah.
amazing meetings. What do I
Yeah.
do to come back to the meeting number 6 fully
Yeah.
present? So this is the book all about. There are a lot of interesting stuff there. I'm very
Oh,
exciting.
super cool.
It's definitely hard work. I knew it will be hard. I didn't know how hard it's going to be. So
Yeah.
soon.
Soon. Well, I look forward to that. And as somebody who's actually, it's funny, my own background and my own educational background, I ended up dropping out of college. I was in a chemical engineering program and I went into linguistics. And then I worked at a translation agency and hated it for a number of reasons. And then I went into IT and cyber. And, I did it as a practitioner for a number of years. And then I went back to school and got an MBA at one point. And I always tell people I basically had 3 training programs, right? So I did my linguistics degree, I did my MBA, and I did improv comedy for about 10 years. Out of those 3, improv comedy is by far the most useful. Occasionally, I get to use my language skills, and that's a lot of fun. I recently did a podcast appearance on an episode in Portuguese talking about API security. I'm looking forward to that coming out. But, the ability to interact with people and relate to them, just as you described around the ski and snowboarding conference and around, kind of the difference in level of interaction engagement we have in person versus remote, I think is so important. And that point about remote meetings, throwing off your flow for the rest of the day, but also, by the way, you're always only kind of like half present in a remote meeting. I know, from my own experience, a previous cloud security company that I was with, when we did virtual proof of concept exercises, they took about 4 weeks. But when we could get everybody in the room, no other screens going, no email, Slack, etc., we could knock out a POC in between 2 and 4 hours. And, it's just a dramatically better use of people's time and a better experience overall. And we all walk away from that experience thinking, this is great. We really achieved something here. We really actually proved that we could deliver value to the customer and they can actually improve their cybersecurity outcomes, right? And that's what customers are ultimately after.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, what is it? Can you tell us the book title or when we can expect to see it out and where it's going to be available, or not sure yet?
We are redoing the book title.
Okay.
So we're rethinking what can we change. The draft will be available probably mid-May. And
Okay.
then we need to approve the draft. So July, August, I'm guessing.
Okay. Awesome. So later this year. Everybody keep an eye out for that. And for people who want to know more about the Ski and Snowboarding Conference, where can they find that information?
So they can go definitely to the ssc.ca. So thesscc.ca. We're doing the Bikes and Hikes event August 15, or they can find me online and I'll direct them there as well. Thanks God, my last name is quite unique and the first name as well. So it's not very hard to find me online.
Yep. And we'll link all of that from the show notes for today's episode. And then last but not least, I definitely want to get in a plug for your podcast, the Security Architectures podcast, and the, I can't remember the name of the other one. Cyber Inspiration podcast. So please have a look out for those. Again, we'll link those from the show notes. Evgeniy Kharam, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure having this conversation with you today. And thank you for sharing your experience, your knowledge, and all the things that you've learned over your career and for all that you're doing right now for the community.
Thank you.